What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with Astro DFS, bringing you a brand new video. Today's video going over Saturday night's showdown between Detroit and Dallas. This one 52-point total. Dallas coming in somewhere around 5.5-point home favorites. It's been a while since we've had a primetime game with this big of a total. Lately, the primetime games have not disappointed as far as points. Compared to the beginning of the season, it seemed like every game was an under, like just guaranteed an under. Lately, no. These primetime games are definitely living up. So let's get into it. CeeDee Lamb, the most expensive player on both sides, rightfully so, against Detroit. Leads the league in red zone targets. Best wide receiver in the league versus man. 18 touchdowns to wide receiver Detroit's given up. CeeDee Lamb is averaging 28.8 DK points at home. Good matchup overall for him. Great play tonight. And then the other opposing wide receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 11,000 on DraftKings, 13.5 on Fanduel. So third most expensive on Fanduel, second on DraftKings. They pretty much just have Dak and St. Brown flipped. 35% of the red zone targets go to Amon-Ra. We'll see Lewis, who is Dallas's worst cornerback, the most. 100 plus yards in the last two games. Plays surprisingly better. His numbers on road games are just slightly above home, but he's averaging over 20 points a game. So Amon-Ra, if you love the Dallas side tonight, Amon-Ra is a good run back. And then Dak, third most expensive on DraftKings, so you get the advantage of Dak on DraftKings then DraftKings and FanDuel. Amon-Ra is FanDuel, then DraftKings. So still, Dak is on this slate. The prices are kind of crazy on FanDuel. Usually, you're getting quarterbacks above 15K easy, but Dak's only 14.5 and Jared Goff's 13. I don't know what's going on, but those prices are kind of odd, in my opinion. But let's get into Dak. So 27.2 DK points a game at home versus 16 on the road. We all know Dallas is one of the best home teams in this league. No matter who they're facing, they play well at home. Most red zone pass attempts in the league. Detroit giving up the most rushing yards to quarterbacks this season. Detroit ninth most points per drive against. So that means every drive that an opposing team's on the field, they're getting some type of points. So it's a big one for Dallas there. Jared Goff, I have as a fade, right? And if you haven't been here before and seen these videos, fade doesn't mean that I'm getting zero exposure to these guys. Obviously, you want to get exposure, but it just means I'm going to be under the field on these guys. It might come back to haunt me, right? I'm still going to have ownership. Like, I'm still going to have roster percentages of these guys. It's just, it's lower. So if they do good, I'm in the end going to do bad. But just the way that my process works, it's different than others, right? Most of the time it doesn't work out for me, but the times that it do, it's really good. So, but back into it, Dallas, 184 yards per game against, passing yards, right? Detroit obviously having a top 10 offense, though. Dallas lowest completion percentage in the league again, so another worrisome one. And then a bottom 5 PFF pass block advantage, averaging 15.7 points on road games versus 22.7 at home. So a big difference there for Jared Goff and that Detroit offense on the road. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery next. Jahmyr Gibbs more expensive on both sides than Montgomery. I don't like either one, right? It's a tough matchup for both Detroit running backs, although they have a top 5 PFF run block advantage. If you were to ask me which running back, I'm going to prefer David Montgomery. Just because of the red zone work. He's a top 10 running back when it comes to red zone opportunities. So I'm going to prefer David Montgomery. I think they're just both too expensive to really get a high ownership of. Jahmyr Gibbs has been playing really good ever since Montgomery went out for those few weeks, and he's pretty much played really well since. They're just really, really up there in price, especially on DraftKings. Fanduel, not as bad on a slate like this. Like I said, the prices are pretty low compared to most slates, but on DraftKings, they're just really expensive. Tony Pollard, cheaper than both of them on DraftKings, more expensive than Montgomery on Fanduel. Rico Dowdle, we already know, is out. Top 10 PFF run block advantage. Second most red zone rushing attempts in the league. Lions have only given up 100 total yards in the last 2 games combined. Minnesota only ran 17 yards. That's including the quarterback. So it's going to be tough for Pollard. This is going to be a boom or bust game, right? Especially at his price point. And you look at Tony Pollard's last 2 games, they're not very impressive. So, although Tony Pollard gets a lot of red zone opportunities, like second most, he only has 4 red zone rushing touchdowns. That's not very impressive. I think he's got somewhere of like a high 40, low 50. It means 1 out of every 10 carries is a touchdown. So, not really good there. Sam Laporta, fade. Just cheaper than Tony Pollard on DraftKings, $1,000 more on FanDuel. Prefer Jake Ferguson, and we'll talk about him shortly. Just for a cheaper price on DraftKings, FanDuel, they're pretty neck and neck. Dallas has played tight ends good all season. Sam Laporta, although 10.9 is still very impressive, that's DraftKings points. So, if you put a touchdown in there, right, he's only averaging 4.9 out of that. But at home, he's at 18, so a big difference there as well for Sam Laporta. But then going into Jake Ferguson, like I mentioned, cheaper than Laporta. Second most red zone targets in the league, only behind his teammate CeeDee Lamb, right? Detroit, 6 touchdowns to tight ends this season. Top 10 PFF tight end advantage. And averaging 12.6 DK points at home. So yet again, not as impressive, but I'll take a 12.6 over 10.9. Especially at a discounted price. Brandon Cooks, I really like on FanDuel more than I do DraftKings. If you're asking me, I like Brandon Aubrey a lot. At his price point on DraftKings compared to Cooks. FanDuel, like I said, FanDuel's a good price for him. The only things that really stand out, averaging 15.9 DK points at home compared to like 5 or 6 on the road. So a big difference for Brandon Cooks at home. 8 red zone targets, which is 3rd or 4th on the team. Good matchup overall. But other than that, not a lot stands out. Obviously, with a high total, these guys could get boosted points just, based off of what Vegas projects. So I do like Brandon Cooks. I don't love him, but on a total of 52 when Dallas is favored by 5.5, Tony Pollard not the greatest red zone rusher, then yes, I like Brandon Cooks. Brandon Aubrey, though, at 4,800 on DraftKings, like I said, just slightly above Cooks on FanDuel, is the league leader in points scored. There's no other... average. There's no one that averages more points scored for a team, which typically is a kicker's statistic, than Brandon Aubrey. He's at like 9.5, 9.6, somewhere around there. Detroit, 68%. Bottom 10 in red zone defense. So they're giving up a lot of scores in the red zone, which is unfortunate for Aubrey, but with a team like Dallas, who just is very efficient, gets the ball down the field, and they're either going to kick a field goal or they're going to score. They're very, very hard attacking offense. So Brandon Aubrey, really loved tonight, has yet to miss a field goal attempt this season. Michael Bagley, don't really like him today, honestly. Detroit, a top 5 red zone offense, which means if they get in the red zone, they're scoring. They're not kicking a field goal, they're scoring. In the 2 games with Detroit as their kicker, he's only got 12 total points, so not a huge love. Both defenses, same note, right? Don't mind either defense on both sides. Nothing stands out as far as turnovers or sacks, pressure rate, blitz, any of that stuff. Nothing really stands out as significant to where this either defense should be really highly projected. With a 52-point total and Dallas only favored by 5.5, that means Detroit's going to score. It means Dallas is going to score, according to Vegas, right? We can have an absolute different type of game, right? And the offenses can struggle, the defenses step up, right? This is a huge playoff game, basically. This is a playoff game between Dallas and Detroit. Whoever wins gets up there for that home playoff bye. So both teams playing to win. I just two top 10 offenses. I just can't love defenses here. As good as the Cowboys defense is as points, if you take away their pick sixes, they're not putting up significant fantasy points. They're still playing good, but they're not putting up significant fantasy points. So just keep that in mind. And then we get to our values. Jameson Williams, 3,400 on DraftKings, 8K on Fanduel, 13 targets in the last 2 games. Pretty bad matchup for him, but he could be used for speed. Fastest wide receiver on that team, I do believe. They keep using him in basically plays to just get open, right? And obviously everyone wants to get open. So what I mean by that is using his speed as a weapon, right? They're not including him highly to where he is that big of a threat, but they're finding ways to get him the ball and get an open field. That's what they're trying to do with Jameson Williams as of right now. That might change in the future, but as of right now, that's what they're trying to do, is let him use his speed. So on both sides, I'm okay with him. Josh Reynolds on DraftKings, I'm fine. This price point. FanDuel, I think he's too expensive at 9K for the outcome of what he does. Similar stats versus man as Amon-Ra. Tough matchup. Has yet to get 4+ targets or 5 or more targets in a game since week 5. Third on the team in red zone targets, but it's not a very high number. Michael Gallup, 3,000 on DraftKings, 8,000 on FanDuel. We'll see Sutton's backup if Sutton is out. Watch for that. Don't love him. Gets very minimal red zone targets. If Sutton's in, it's not as good, but if Sutton's out, that's a big plus for Michael Gallup tonight. Like I said, on a 52-point total, you're going to want exposure to a team that is 5.5-point favorites, one of the highest scoring offenses in the league, so especially at home. So Michael Gallup, yep. Rico Dowdle is out, which means Deuce Vaughn then is a value for me. 1,000 on DraftKings, 5,000 the min on FanDuel. Nothing really stands out to me, but getting the RB2 work at his price point, I'm okay with, right? 2 red zone touchdowns for Deuce Vaughn this season compared to Pollard when the rushing attempts are significantly different. I'm okay with paying Deuce Vaughn to get a sneaky touchdown, or if Tony Pollard were to get hurt, Deuce Vaughn would get a majority. Malik Davis might be the next guy there. We'll kind of see as we get Hunter is another guy that's gotten very minimal work, but some work nonetheless. So yeah, that is it for the breakdown. I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you guys are interested, I just had the quarterback and running backs for the main slate video come out yesterday. If you guys are looking for the wide receiver, tight end, that video will be coming out on either later tonight or Sunday morning, whatever I get to getting it out for you guys, but I will have it before the main slate, and then I will have my updated spreadsheet come Sunday. So if you guys are interested in that, click the link in the description, and I will see you guys in the next one.